Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. In this video, I picked out a few questions that were posed to Ripple Chief Technology Officer David Schwartz, who is also one of the co-creators, original architects of the XRP ledger itself. And I've got a new video out today posted by none other than John McAfee, and he says that regulation within the crypto asset class is never going to work. It's never going to take hold. And so I'll be getting into that and sharing my opinions on that. But before we get going here, if you would please delicately tap that like button. And if you're a fan of Ripple and XRP, go ahead and subscribe, because I am Mr. XRP Bull, and we can be friends on this channel. On to the content. So here's the first question. This is from Quora. I just picked out a few questions just for fun. I really enjoyed reading through these, so I hope you guys enjoy this content as well. But I just find it fascinating. Anytime you can pick the brain of David Schwartz and get his actual answers on whatever given topic, I mean, it's a good time. He's entertaining too, and he's just a wealth of knowledge. So here's the first one that I picked out. The question was posed on Quora: how long does a Ripple XRP transaction take? Now, of course, that was phrased improperly. We know that that whoever wrote that question, they are just talking about XRP. Ripple is a company. XRP is a digital asset. Okay. And then here's David Schwartz's response. From the time an XRP ledger transaction is broadcast to the time the transaction is irrevocably confirmed is typically 5 to 7 seconds, even with a minimum transaction fee, 10 drops, which is 0.00001 XRP. If you see an XRP transaction taking longer than this, it's usually one of the following issues. And by the way, I learned something new about XRP today, and as soon as I read it, I'm going to point out what it is, but check this out. So anyway, if you see an XRP transaction take longer than this, it's usually one of the following things, and he's got 3 reasons. Reason number 1, the transaction has not actually been sent to the network. For example, if you request a withdrawal from an exchange or a wallet program, the transaction may take some time to get to the network. Reason number 2, the transaction pays a minimum fee and the network is congested. I've never seen a minimum fee transaction take longer than 12 seconds, but 12 seconds is longer than the typical 4 to 7 seconds. If you're really in a hurry, bump your transaction fee to 100 drops, which is 0.0001 XRP, and you'll almost always get in the currently open ledger. And that's what I found out that was new today. I've been following XRP and learning about XRP and following Ripple and David Schwartz for over a year and a half, ever since November of 2017, and I have never found anywhere that has explained this to me. I've seen different entities paying different fees, because again, the lowest transaction fee, he cited it up here, 0.00001 XP. So I always had the question, was like, well, why would anyone pay more than that? Because I did see, because the XRP ledger, it's public. You can see what fees are being paid here, and so I was like, why are they doing that? Well, apparently you do that if you want to speed up your transactions. I had no idea, so I learned something kind of cool and new today. And so if you knew that, then you're cooler than me. And if you didn't, then you're not cool, and neither am I. So I don't know. I'm kidding. But that was fascinating to learn. And of course, another thing, and probably most of you already know this, but the fees don't go to anyone. They certainly don't go to Ripple. The fees associated with these transactions, it's just XRP that is burnt and it's gone forever, and that's why XRP is actually a deflationary asset. The reason that exists, the reason that XRP is deflationary, is to prevent DDoS attacks, denial of service attacks. That's it. And so if you want to attack the XRP ledger, you want to attack the whole network, it's going to get costly. And it's really not going to be very fruitful, because what are you actually going to gain out of it? It becomes extremely costly, and then once you're done, you haven't achieved control of the network or anything like that. So I don't really see that do anything for you. But another thing I've seen, just a side note before I continue, and it's on the topic of transfer fees with XRP. I wish I could remember the numbers, but there was one fee that was paid, because you get to choose what your fee is, and that's, again, the part that had always kind of puzzled me. I just hadn't seen anyone explain it. But there was somebody who paid an insanely high fee, and I can't remember what it was, but it pretty much ate up like all the XRP that was transacted, and it was a really high amount. And gosh, I wish I could remember what the numbers were, but I think somebody had fat fingers, maybe missed like a decimal place, and like paid an absurdly high fee and pretty much lost all their XRP. Yeah, I remember seeing that and I was like, yikes, because like even then I still didn't understand why at that moment when I read that, but I knew that that person chose to pay that fee, and I was like, why'd they do that? Well, it's a mistake, clearly, but that's no bueno. That's no good. I don't know. So anyway, there we are, though. And here's the third reason that he came up with here. The transaction has been confirmed, but that hasn't been detected or processed by the application that you were using to check the status of the network. This is common with exchanges that only check for transactions periodically, and he writes in parentheses, sometimes less than once a minute, or with wallet programs that just happen to be talking to an overloaded server. Then he ends this by stating, if you ever see an XRP ledger transaction taking more than a few minutes, either the transaction isn't getting to the network, the transaction is malformed, you're talking to a server that is broken or failing, or you're waiting for something else to process the transaction results. The ledger itself never takes anywhere near this long. You know what I found interesting now that I have learned this, that you can pay more in terms of drops to get transactions going faster. I'm just curious, who is it that needs to have the transaction, instead of going in like 4 to 7 seconds, go in like 2 or 3 seconds? Where's the added utility there? Functionally, why does that matter? I'm genuinely curious. If somebody's paying for it, I believe there's a reason. I just don't know what it is, and I'm genuinely curious on that. Why do some people want to pay more to pick up a few seconds in speed? Just off the top of my head, I mean, the only thing that I could even theorize could have to do with it is if you're a business and you're constantly moving a high quantity of transactions, and I don't know. I don't even know if that would really matter, though, because even if you're like a market maker or something like that, I mean, if they'd still get through, and then that helps you on the spread, I'm just not sure. Yeah, I don't know. I wonder if any of you can think of anything out there as to why that would be beneficial. Again, I believe there's a reason. I just don't know what it is. But again, like I said, I've said it before many times, I don't know everything, but I do like to learn. So if you can teach me on that, please share. And I'll tell everybody else on the channel too, and I'll be happy to credit you. All right, here's the next question on Quora that was asked of Ripple CTO David Schwartz. Why is Ripple's XRP still climbing in value when it may be one of the crypto coins likely to be affected if Facebook's Libra coin becomes a reality? And David responded, why would you think such an effect would be negative rather than positive? Imagine if you were in Quora's marketing department. Would you be thinking about how to get home internet access to more people? Would you be wondering how to get more people to own phones or tablets so that they could access Quora? Of course you wouldn't. You would start out by saying that people who have home internet access and phones or tablets are your target market. But why do people have home internet access and tablets or phones? And why is Wi-Fi so popular and good? It's not because of anything Quora did. Because of the prior success of Quora's competitors, people have all the tools needed for them to access Quora. In other words, Quora has such a large market today because adjacent businesses and even competitors were so successful in the past. Believe it or not, everyone in the cryptocurrency business badly needs their competitors to succeed to build the tools and markets that they will try to address. The market seems to understand this. If cryptocurrencies were such direct competitors, why do they tend to rise and fall together? And as it pertains to price, isn't that exactly what I'd been saying as of late? The fact of the matter is that cryptocurrencies, they do move in tandem price-wise with Bitcoin, and that's because the market's still trying to figure all this out, and David Schwartz said as much right here. And that's true. And so to me, this is basically sage wisdom. And on the point of needing your competitors to succeed, hey, bully for him for saying that, man. I am all for that. And that's why it makes me laugh when the Bitcoin maxis would rather just say all this garbage about Ripple and XRP, which, they get so much FUD out there that has tricked some people. They're absolutely slowing down to whatever degree. I'm not saying it's a major degree, but who knows? Who knows to what degree? They are slowing down adoption of cryptocurrency at large, because XRP is part of the crypto asset class, part of the ecosystem. And so when you're talking trash about XRP and saying it's a scam and this and that, which of course it is not, that's just the most absurd thing on the planet. But when people are actually saying that and feeding that, especially to newcomers into the space, that's actually materially harmful to whatever degree. I don't know if there's a way to actually calculate what that is, but it doesn't matter. It's clearly harmful. And so That's why for me, hey, if Bitcoin can get traction doing something other than being a store of value, all for it, man. Absolutely all for it. If Lightning Network works and Bitcoin gets further adoption as a result, super duper. Even though, by the way, of course, in case you haven't heard me say this, Litecoin would work for pretty much any blockchain on the planet, including XRP, if it worked. It's just, I don't like the solution because it's still a centralized solution, and that's why I think that the layer 1 technology that is Bitcoin should be thrown in the garbage, be thrown in the throw it in the history museum, man. It's like, hey, respect it for what it was and what it got going here, but it just building on top of that it's kind of conceptually silly, given that most of the scaling problems and other problems associated with Bitcoin have actually been solved by other cryptocurrencies that came afterwards, including XRP. Large part of it is thanks to the consensus mechanism, which solves the double spend problem on the XRP ledger. So that's my 2 cents on that. But I'm absolutely thrilled anytime I see progress. I don't care what the project is, and really none of the other crypto projects out there are really even competing for Ripple's use case. I mean, maybe you could try and argue Stellar Lumens, but they're really going more so after the unbanked, whereas Ripple, that's actually, I think, a big part of the reason Jed Caleb Russ left Ripple and started Stellar, from what I'd read. Just a completely different business plan is what Jed wanted to go after. And so Ripple, they're going after the banked, largely, right? They're going after helping facilitate cross-border transactions for existing accounts and remittance companies, of course. So it's not exclusively, but that's what I'm getting here. Here's the third question posed to David Schwartz. It is, how long will Ripple continue to release 1 billion XRP from its escrow account into the market every month? And David responds, that's not what happens. I know that's what I was thinking the moment I read that question. I was like, no, that's incorrect. It's just not quite right. I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding, I suspect. But anyway, he continues. The XRP ledger releases 1 billion XRP from Ripple's escrow account to Ripple every month. Ripple releases some fraction of the XRP to the market, and some fraction is placed back into escrow. Because all transactions and state on the XRP ledger is public, everyone can see these transactions as they happen and see how much of the released XRP goes in each direction. Ripple also publishes quarterly reports of our use of XRP. Here's the latest one. He provides the link, which I'm not opening. It's not for the sake of this video. It's kind of outside the scope of what I'm talking about here. But anyway, and then he wraps this up by stating, as of right now, Ripple has approximately 50.9 billion XRP in escrow and holds approximately 6.5 billion XRP out of escrow. Approximately 42.6 billion XRP is currently in circulation. You can also find a list of all Ripple's XRP escrows and their release dates, extracted from the public ledger by a third party unrelated to Ripple here. And then he linked to XRP Arcade, which I've actually pulled up in the past, although I don't believe that I looked at this page, and this is kind of cool. So it's got all these addresses which are displayed on BitHump, and so you can actually see the actual transactions of the escrow in and out. So just kind of cool. I thought I'd pull it up for you, so I'll link to this in case you want to check out. This is a great website, too. I've kind of covered in the past, so I'm not going to run through all this stuff, but check out xrparcade.com if you got a free minute. It's fun to check out here. Now, here's a quick comment from David Schwartz. This one's on Twitter, though, and it was in response to Laura Shen. Are you familiar with Laura Shen? She's got her little podcast on cryptocurrency. Mega maximalist within the Bitcoin community. Big BTC maxi. Very anti-XRP. And, I remember something went down with Laura within the last year or so. There's going to be a podcast that she was doing, and she had some majorly anti-XRP person that was coming on, and so it was going to be Laura and her, and then David asked if he could jump into the podcast, given that, mind you, he's one of the people that created XRP. Talk about a wealth of knowledge. He's volunteering to come on Laura's little podcast there. And she wouldn't have it. She just wouldn't have it, and she ultimately said that she didn't like the. I think I could be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure because this is a while back. It was like early last year, I think. But she said that she wasn't going to have him on because she didn't like the response from the XRP community, or she felt like I don't know if she said that she was along the lines of bullied or too much response. It was a bunch of nonsense, whatever it was. But regardless, David was not on the program, and then she went on to do her podcast, and it's just a bunch of XRP nonsense FUD because they're emotionally and ideologically against it. So that's where you're on that. But here's what she tweeted out, and then I want to share with you what David wrote in response to this. And this is old. It is from January 3rd of last year, 2018. So Laura Shen, she wrote this. Ripple is highly centralized, and XRP is more akin to a PayPal account than a trustless system like Bitcoin. It's hard to come up with any rational reason why XRP exists in the Ripple protocol, other than as a means for Ripple to make money, lots of money. So that, you can see the type of person that we're talking about here. And Laura is wildly popular. Let's see how many followers she has. Let's see, 114,000 followers. Jesus, that's what I'm saying. Like she has such great reach. And she is completely anti-XRP, and she's just putting foot out there. It's just another one of those people. And that's not going to help adoption within the crypto asset class. Because if you think that your use case for Bitcoin as a peer-to-peer cashless system, if that's the number one use case, and that's what people are really going to want, get more exposure to the people. And that means letting your competitors get out there too, if you view XRP as a competitor to Bitcoin. And, if you feel that threatened, I mean, that's the only rational reason, that and just ideology in general, because you feel like XRP, one developer building on top of the XRP ledger is positioning it to help banks transact money more efficiently, which helps their customers, which means it helps real people, by the way, and that's what you're actually against, which is kind of gross and disgusting. But that's what we're talking about here. It's one developer building on top of the XRP ledger. You don't like what they're doing, so the entire crypto, the entire digital asset is garbage, and you're just going to lie about it? I don't like that. So check this out. Here was David Schwartz's response to that. Please explain how Bitcoin ensures it will follow the same rules tomorrow as it does today. And then, please explain specifically one rule XRP transactions follow today that you don't like. Because isn't that what we care about when we talk about trust? And that's what I want to kind of get at. When people are talking about whether they're talking about XRP being centralized or they don't like this or that, ask them specifically from a technical perspective as far as how XRP actually operates, the actual ledger. What rule is there within the system, within the code, that is followed right now that you don't like? And you can kind of follow up, and you can do variants of that question too. You can be like, well, what rule is being followed on the XRP ledger that makes it centralized? What is the code? And another one that I always like to ask is, what is, you can show them all the nodes within the network, all 1,000+ nodes, and be like, what's the central point of failure? Of course there isn't one. It's decentralized, but I love that question because you can ask it to anyone, anywhere, and there is no answer other than there is no central point of failure. That's it. And so that's why when these people talk about it being XRP being centralized, it's just completely laughable. But it's just what bothers me in part is just the outright dishonesty. And if they would just work to help get this type of technology adopted in general, and if people want to use Bitcoin as a peer-to-peer cashless system, and that takes traction, and then people don't need to use Ripple's technology, and they don't need to use banks and remittance companies for cross-border transactions, then cool. If you're that sure that you are right, Mr. BTC Maxi, or in this case, Miss BTC Maxi Laura, if you're so sure that that's what's going to happen, then enable people to just see what the options are, see what the competition is. But the reality is, the world's not ready to do that, and I think you know it. The world is not going to jump on top of this technology and start using it. It's clunky, it's slow. Bitcoin is not easy to use. It's not user-friendly. You need more interfaces that work at an easier fashion. Blockchains and other types of assets are not interoperable to a reasonable degree yet. And look, Ripple's working on all of this stuff. It's called the Internet of Value. We're getting there. But I'm just saying, if you really believe that Bitcoin's the end-all, be-all, you should just be rooting for everybody out there. But who actually has the confidence? Ripple. Ripple has the confidence. They say bring on the competition because they think they've got a place. But these Bitcoin maximalists, nope. They don't think so. They absolutely don't. All right, on to the next piece. This is the little video that I was teasing at the beginning of the video here. And John tweeted this out. This was earlier today, wasn't it? Yeah. Sorry, it was yesterday. Whatever. Doesn't matter. It's still a new video. The doomed attempt to regulate crypto and why it is doomed. And it's just a couple minutes here. And he's a hoot to listen to. Have you ever listened to John McAfee talk? Oh, man. I like that. He's entertaining to me. He really genuinely is. And so I like the guy. But, he brought up... He said that the crypto regulation is never going to work. And what he's using as a comparison is he brought up like the drug war in the United States. And he's kind of got a point there. Like, there's the war on drugs, and like there's massive drug use is still this and that. But but he was making an analogy there, and it's so loosely related. But anyway, he was talking about that, and you know what it got me thinking about is because his point, really, his big point is that you're never going to make people behave in a way that they want to behave, and that's kind of like the reason. I don't know if for those outside of the United States, if you're not familiar with prohibition. Prohibition was when was it actually? It was in the 1920s, or was it the early 30s? Maybe I feel like it was the 20s, the Roaring 20s, and which we're about back in. It's 2019. We're about to be in the 20s again. Think about that. But it was, I think it was the 20s. But prohibition, it outlawed alcohol within the United States, and then his point basically was that, and he wasn't talking about prohibition, but it's just another example. But people are just you can regulate what you want to do, but people are going to do what they want to do. And he brought up this, and this is a fun point too. He talked about how there's a bunch of fake John McAfee accounts on Twitter and that are stating things like, send me 1 Bitcoin and I will send you 5 back. And his point, and the way he said it was really comical to me. Like, I can't do this justice. You'll just have to watch this video if you want like the full John McAfee effect, if you want it. But he goes, people are stupid. And some of them will send them a Bitcoin or half of a Bitcoin. He's like, you can't regulate things to fix stupidity. That's what he was saying here, and I was kind of cracking up listening to him anyway. But even so, even if you can't protect every single end user, you know why I'm more interested in regulation as a whole? It's really more so just beyond consumer protection. It's so that businesses building on top of ledgers, on top of blockchains, have more certainty that what they're doing is not going to land them in jail or have them be massively fined, things like that. I want regulatory clarity so that we can have the entire, first of all, XRP ecosystem, but just the crypto asset class in general. I want to see it flourish more, and it is being held back by lack of regulatory clarity, in particular in the United States. And so that type of thing, that will help. But what he's talking about on an individual level, how there's always going to be some stupid people out there doing stupid things, well, yeah, there's truth to that. Fair enough. There is some truth to that. But I'm still not against, by and large, having certain protections in place from the federal government in terms of trading this or that out there, because there are scammers out there that without certain regulations would be able to easily take advantage of people. And I'll just leave it at that, because getting into it further would be outside the scope of this video. But I am not a financial advisor. Do not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea.